very possible that Nigeria can elevate, Nigeria can grow. Some people cannot send their kids to school. Some people cannot, they just cannot upgrade their lives. They can be in a better area, they can be in a better location. It's not very fair.
Hello everyone, my name is Lanre, your trusted Ielts tutor, and this is the Ielts multi-step program. As is our usual doing here, we run regular speaking tests with chosen candidates where we try to give you a simulation of what you can expect in the actual speaking test. We're going to be watching one of the videos today, and I'm going to be reacting to it and also reviewing that video. As is our usual here, the tips and strategies that I share at every point when I pause the video are directed at you, our viewers, because it's something that is actionable and something that is needed for you. So please, join me as we enjoy this review. Good afternoon and welcome to the IELTS speaking test.
Good afternoon.
My name is Lanre. I'll be your examiner for today with examiner number 4452. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Bolanle Olukoni.
Great. So should I call you Bolanle or Miss Olukoni?
Miss Bolanle is fine.
Miss Bolanle is fine. Great. Could you describe one of your childhood friends?
I would describe one of my childhood friends as the first friend I ever made as a kid. Unfortunately, we are not in contact, not because of any conflict or whatsoever. We just lost touch. Growing up for me, I moved around a lot. My family, my mom, had to change jobs constantly. So making friends for me was a bit of a hassle. If I make friends with someone today, in the next 5 years, would have to relocate elsewhere. So, although I had a beautiful childhood, but in terms of friendships, it wasn't quite it.
Great. Did she answer the question? No. Describe one of your childhood friends. Now, I understand that she might not have had a lot of friends when she was a child, which is actually understandable, but she didn't tell us that at first. What she did was to explain her childhood, and that's not a direct response to the question. Could you describe one of your childhood? If I didn't have friends at all, here's how the answer would have gone. Could you describe one of your childhood friends? Well, that's a difficult question. When I was younger, I never really made so many friends, so I really wouldn't have anybody specifically that I could describe or I could call my childhood friend. Then you will now go ahead and explain why. Well, what she did was she said, if I was to describe one of my childhood friends, I would say, and then she went on into how she didn't have friends. So please ensure that your response answers the questions directly. Did you have a lot of friends when you were young?
Not so much. No, not so much.
Do you stay in touch with any of them?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. A few of them. I would say from those I had while I was in secondary school, yes, I still keep in touch with a few of them.
Do you like dancing?
Yes, I'm actually a great dancer.
Why do you like dancing?
It's a form of relieving stress. It helps me, exercise as well, because I feel we should learn how to keep our bodies fit and strong. It's a way of distracting me from, a chaotic day, and generally it's just really fun.
I like that. What kinds of dance can be seen in your country?
In my country, Nigeria, there's so many dance styles. We have the likes of Azonto, we have the current one, they call it Zazu, We have the leg work, we have Etigi, we have so many other dance steps, I would say.
Now, do you think it is important that countries' traditional dances are preserved?
Yes, because I believe it's our heritage. Here in Nigeria, we are known to be very diverse and very cultural. We have so many cultural groups and cultures rather here in Nigeria. And I would say we are very well known for, all these things. Even if we are influenced by, the Western culture, it still doesn't take away our deep roots. Yes.
I believe that. How do you feel about visits to the dentist?
I think it's very important that we generally as human beings make constant visits to the dentist. We have to take care of our teeth, making sure that we don't have cavities and all those things that can be harmful to our hygiene generally.
Why do you think some people are scared of visits to the dentist?
I think some people are scared of needles. Have you seen those needles at the dentist's office? It's always really long and scary. I, for one, don't really have a phobia for needles. I mean, you can take a go at it. I don't have a problem with that at all.
So what are dentists like in your country generally?
Dentists in my country, here in Nigeria, I believe are very professional. They know what they're doing. I'm going to speak for myself. For the trips that I've made to the dentist's office, they're always very caring, very attentive, and very careful, because the teeth is a very sensitive area of the body.
I like that. I like the way.
So far, you would see that Bolane is doing quite well. Apart from that first misstep that she had, she's probably bounced back really well. She's doing quite well. I like her pronunciation. It's quite very clear and it's very understandable. I like the fact that she's very natural in her use of English language. She's not forcing it. She's not trying to be as academic as possible. Neither is she reverting to a form of informality that would probably throw us off balance. So she's in between, and I think she's really doing quite well. I like her use of collocations, take a go at it. That's really nice, instead of just, finding one bigger word to use. I like when you use easy words that collocate together and they actually match what you want to convey. Bolane is doing quite well so far.
You describe their jobs. So let's talk more about jobs.
Okay.
This is the speaking part 2, which is the long turn. Here, you'll be given a cue card that contains a question with some prompts.
All right.
You'll be given 1 minute to jot down the things you have to say, and then you're expected to respond for between 1 minute to 2 minutes. So here's your cue card.
Okay.
Here's a pen.
Thank you.
And here's a piece of paper for you to jot down your thoughts.
All right.
So while you're doing that, I'll read out the question so that we can all be on the same page. Describe a memorable job that you once had. You should say where this job was,
Okay.
when you did this job, what you did in this job, and explain why this job was so memorable.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Great. So, let's begin.
All right. In the year 2019, I started my career as an on-air personality. That's an OAP. I would say it's something that I've always dreamt of doing since when I was a kid. I used to listen to the likes of Bemi Olateru and Tolu Oniru, that's Tools, the likes of Daddy Freeze, and so many other OGs in the media industry. So that's how I began my passion for radio presenting. My first job ever was in Ibadan. In the year 2019. I worked at Royal Roots FM. They call it R2 FM right now, and it was a very, very challenging and beautiful experience altogether. That's actually where I learned how to master my multitasking skills, even while at work. Right now, I no longer work as an on-air personality, but I would forever take that experience every single place that I go. It was such a memorable experience for me because I have always dreamt of being an OAP since I was a young girl. And it just set the tone for me. It just really set the tone for me. So yes,
Thank you
it was very memorable.
Correct. Now, what do you think?
Now, if you look at our part 2 answer, I don't think it was quite long. I think it was just within the range of what the examiner wanted. Remember, your speaking part 2 question is supposed to be between 1 minute to 2 minutes. So I'm thinking that she did between 1 minute 30 seconds, which is quite acceptable also too. She answered all the prompts. She talked about the year. She talked about the place. She talked about what she did. And she talked about why she liked it. And she talked about the most memorable experience that she took away from that job. So did she answer the question? For task response, full marks for that. For the connections between the different parts of it, I think it really went well. She dovetailed into the next prompts quite easily. There was no specific or significant lapse in between what the job was, what year it was. So everything sort of was intertwined. So I think this was a quite commendable speaking part 2.
Poverty is. What is poverty?
Poverty, I would say, the first word that comes to my head is limitations. I would not necessarily say I know what it feels like to be poor, but I've heard stories and I've seen it with my own eyes. When you're poor, you have limitations, loads and loads of limitations. You don't have access to a lot of things.
What kinds of poverty exist in your country?
I would say poverty when it comes to food. There's so many people, you look at yourself as an average Nigerian and then you feel you have the most struggles. But when you go to the slum, you see people running through or going through the garbage to see if they can find food to eat. You know, some people cannot send their kids to school. Some people cannot, they just cannot upgrade their lives. They can't be in a better.
So for this question, what kinds of poverty do you think exist in your country? She only gave us one type. That's the poverty when you cannot get food. The other ones were not clearly expressed. She just sort of implied it and expected us to fill in the gap. Please don't do that. Ensure that you have specific tags, specific words describing the things that you want to say. What types of poverty exist in your country? Poverty of the mind, poverty of food, poverty of clothes, poverty of shelter. If that's how you want to describe it, please go ahead and describe it that way. But do not just explain things and then expect the examiner to put a label on what you have explained, because that's what she did. She explained that some people cannot, they cannot upgrade their lives. That's poverty of what? The question was what types of poverty? Okay?
Area, they can be in a better location.
What kinds of things can governments do to tackle poverty?
One of the things that the government can do to tackle poverty is to really, really spread out free education for young kids. I feel that used to be done back in the day. I really don't know about how things are now per se, but one thing I know for sure is that free education is not the way it used to be back in the day. That's during the time of Awolowo and some of the legends that built this nation. It's not the same anymore.
How do you think your country will change over the next 50 years?
I know it will change drastically. It will change largely because we have people right now that young people that understand, those that are empowered, those are activists for the likes of Fowles, that's Folari Falano. He's a musician, he's a well-known activist. And so many other people, all around the nation that see that it's very possible that Nigeria can elevate, Nigeria can grow, the dream can be achieved. So yes.
I like that. Do you think wealth can lead to happiness?
Yes, I believe wealth can actually lead to happiness, depending on where you're coming from. We just talked about poverty not so long ago. And just take, for instance, a poor man has access to wealth enough to take care of his family, enough to upgrade his life, enough to build the life that he has always dreamt of. So yes, wealth can in some way find happiness.
Is there a severe wealth gap in your country?
Yes, there is. There's this saying, and it's very popular in this country. They said the poor keeps getting poorer and the rich keeps getting richer. So yes, there is a severe gap.
Do you think the wealthy should be taxed more?
I don't want to say this it's not a form of punishment. We're not punishing anybody, right? I feel everybody, if you have access to earn income, everybody should be taxed. And maybe the rich should be slightly taxed a little bit more, just slightly, not overboard.
Do you think it's fair that so much of the world's wealth is shared by so few people?
It's not very fair. It's not very fair, and it's so unfortunate that we don't live in a very fair world. I believe that the activists of this nation, the activists all around the world, are fighting for people like the poor people, people who have a lot of limitations, to have access to certain things so that the world can be a better place. So yes, I believe so.
Thank you very much for that very interesting conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
All the best in your next phase.
Thank you.
So, Bolanle, how did Bolanle do? Bolanle didn't do so badly. I think that she was able to confidently express her opinions, but I think that there was an underlying factor here. There was this feel of having a conversation with a close friend and not really a test. So that's why you would have constantly refer to people that she expects the examiner to know. Please note that on the day of the test, the examiner is not your friend. The examiner is not a Nigerian like you. The examiner is not your guy. The examiner is just someone who is completely clueless about the questions, completely clueless about your opinions about the questions. So endeavor to be as specific and as clear as possible. Don't just say the likes of Awolowo. I don't know who an Awolowo is. Don't just say Fowles. I don't know who Fowles is. Well, she went ahead and she explained who Fowles is. Fowles is an activist and all of that. And then don't localize most of the, if you're going to localize your ideas, say use it in relation to Nigeria, use it in relation to your own personal experiences, ensure that you indicate that you're going to be focusing on Nigeria. Indicate that you're going to be focusing on Lagos. Indicate that you're going to be focusing on yourself. Another thing that I found quite throwing off for me was, that was repeated almost all through. They're called speech fillers. Are speech fillers avoidable? Maybe not. If you're used to it, you definitely use it. One thing I want you to do is be intentional about the use so that you reduce it where they are not necessary. So I felt that she used it in a lot of unnecessary places. It was just like a sort of prompt for the examiner to just sort of fill in the gap, like, you get it. I don't get it. It's a speaking test because I want you to say what you mean, not for me to get it along the way. She said something like, OGs. What are OGs? I don't know. I don't know. Well, I might know in my capacity as a person, but as an examiner, I don't know. For every expression you use, please ensure that it is not ambiguous, it is as clear as possible. But she was quite good. She was able to answer our questions, even though there were some places where she just swerved away from the direction that the question was pushing her to, and she went ahead and she just took her own walk down memory lane or down like whatever caught her fancy. But overall, it was not a bad test. Drastically, we had words like drastically, we had relieving stress, we had cavities, we had take a go. So there were some quite notable examples of use of ambitious vocabulary. Did she respond to the questions? I think for task response, that would be where I would falter. There's some places where she wasn't responding to the questions, and that's a very significant challenge. For vocabulary, I think she did quite well, even though she could have improved it, but I think she did quite well. For fluency, she was quite fluent. She was quite fluent with the exception of the for pronunciation, which she would get top marks for pronunciation. Her pronunciation was quite accessible and intelligible. And then finally, in terms of grammar, I think her grammar was quite well. Tenses were top notch. She didn't make any unnecessary errors. So I would give her a band 8. And I think for this one, I think I can actually settle for a band 8. She deserves a band 8. So Bolanle, you deserve a band 8. And I think that a lot of people watching this video, please, how do you watch these videos? Pause at the places where you need to listen to the tips that I'm giving. Rewind at the places where you feel you got something there that you might want to use in your own practice. Pick out the best parts of it and then avoid the pitfalls that were pointed out. That's the way to use this video. And thank you for joining us today also too.